G'day guys and welcome back to another episode. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but it's taken me a long time to find a crayfish that was worthy of mounting. This was just one of those days, and on the first drop I spotted a nice big buck, so I went back to the surface, breezed up and made another drop.
Holy shit!
Alright, first crayfish in the bag. So I made another drop in the same area, and on the way down I spotted one straight away. Unfortunately, this was the female in berry, which means it's holding eggs under the tail. These ones aren't allowed to be taken in New Zealand, so these ones go back. Spotted another crayfish way at the back of this cave, but it decided it was a bit too hard to go full, so I kept swimming. Just checking all these likely cracks and spot one way at the back here. Kept looking around and managed to see this big buck. Spooked him with the torch, so I took the light off him straight away, and hopefully he will come back around, but I won't go for that one just yet because he's a bit spooked. This torch is too bright for these crayfish and it's just spooking them further into the holes, so I gave up on that approach and just tried going bare hands. Made another drop and decided I'd go for that one that I blinded before, so I gave him a quick punch, but I was a bit too slow. Maybe he was onto me, maybe I'm just getting old. Either way, he lives to fight another day. Couple of crayfish in the bag, and I think I'll call it a day there. Alright guys, so we're back at my place now. I've had this guy in the freezer for about 2 weeks while I've been getting stuff ready to do this. So just defrosted him. We're going to start breaking down the crayfish itself so we can remove the meat and pick all the rest of the shell. So you just want to break it into sections. We're going to take the top half off and we'll cut around the tail, twist and remove that, and then we'll remove all the meat from the legs and the feelers, and I'll show you how to put it all back together. Let it defrost for a bit longer. It's important to keep this stuff out of direct sun. We're middle of winter here, so the sun's not too harsh, but you can cook the shell in this process, so just keep it covered where possible. Now I'm just going to get in underneath this. Okay, so now we're just going to empty all the meat out. We can keep all of this, we'll just remove these gills, and we can pick out all the meat, put it in there, and make a curry with that. So grab yourself a fork and just start breaking it all away. So put that aside for now and start working on the base. When you get to the legs, just a quick bend in the opposite direction of the joint to snap the toe off, and then blow the meat out with compressed air. This is a pretty messy job and you get covered in crayfish, but it's the only effective way of removing the meat and allowing you to eat the meat as well as preserve the shell. Alright, last but not least, we're going to work all the meat out of this tail. So we're going to break the membrane, trying to get the knife in and get the meat away from the shell as much as we can, and then we'll start digging it out. Now, if you're really careful, you just work your way in, pulling the meat away from the shell, and you can see the internal skins coming off. If you can get it like that, it's good. Depends what kind of stage the crayfish is in of the molting cycle, but this one looks pretty good. So I might just be able to peel it all away from the shell and gives it a real clean finish. And then what I actually do is open up this cavity here. You're not going to see it when the crayfish is mounted, but it allows you to take the whole meat out of the shell. You should be able to see the spoon in there wriggling around, breaking that seal. So this is us, the carapace. All the meat's gone. Clean as. Does look cool, eh? Alright, so our crayfish has been in the brine for about a week now, and we're going to go ahead and get it out. Now, this is 10% formalin, so it's toxic stuff. Make sure you follow all the rules and regulations that go with this stuff, and that includes the health and safety aspect of things, and also the handling and disposal. You can get this stuff from your local farm shops or vets, and it's just a 10% formalin used for foot rot in cattle and probably other stuff as well, so it's pretty toxic stuff. So you just want to remove the crayfish parts from the brine and let it drip dry, and then you're going to start placing reinforcing throughout it. So we're getting this galvanized wire, and we're going to put that through all the feelers and all the legs. This not only adds structure to the crayfish and strengthens it, it allows you to bend and manipulate the legs and for them to stay in the position that you leave them when it dries out. When you put the wire in, trim it off, but leave a bit of excess coming out the end of the feet so you can slide the toe back on the crayfish at the end. Any broken legs, simply pass some wire through it, trim it off for the toe bit and thread it up back through the leg. And you can glue it all up, you won't even know that it was broken off. Place a block of wood underneath the body of the crayfish. I usually find about 50mm works well, and start bending these legs into position. Don't have to get too carried away at this point, but you just want to give yourself an idea of the end product. Once you've done that, start wiring everything up. Here I've tied the antenna back and hooked them around the back of the carapace to keep the antennas facing backwards. This creates a nice natural stance, but it also protects those antennas from breaking off when it's mounted. Once you've done that, you can trim the feathers off the toes and place it all back together. Don't worry about the finish at this point, you're just getting a rough idea. We've got to come back to it and glue it all together. These secondary antennae on the front of the crayfish, you just got to feed a bit of wire down, and that allows you to bend those into place and also gives a bit of structural integrity. Then it's done, you can leave it overnight to dry off and come back to it tomorrow. Alright, so this has been airing out for about 24 hours. We're going to go ahead, pull it apart and fill it with this expanding foam. Alright, so we're going to start with the tail. We're just going to go ahead, start filling it up, spiral out, and we'll plug this hole, and this hole will expand out, and we'll use that to shave down, once it's dried, a knuckle that fits in the back of the carapace. So here I'm just putting the nozzle down the inside of the leg cavity and filling that up. That fills all the leg with expanding foam, and it will dry in that position, so make sure you've got it to where you want it when you do this. Alright, so we're just going to get in now and trim off this excess foam. Once you've test fitted the tail on the back of the carapace, you can thread some reinforcing wire down the tail, and that will act as a bit of a plug to hold the whole thing together. It also means that if you're ever transporting it, you can break it down into sections. You can pull the tail off, you can pull the antennae off. Then you're just going to use a blade to take off any excess foam from these reinforcing bars and glue the tips of the legs back on. Once you've put it all back together, it should start setting and taking shape. You're just going to go over a quick coat of a polyurethane varnish. I prefer to go to a satin finish so it's not so glossy. This protects it from UV rays and gives it a nice wet look. Alright guys, that's it. We're just going to let that cure for a couple of weeks until it stops smelling. Then you can mount it on the wall or tabletop, however you want to do it. You can make reefs out of foam and get all fancy with it, but I just prefer a nice simple mount. So yeah, put it in a cool dry place, wait a couple of weeks and then hang it on the wall. Give it a crack guys, it's pretty fun, and it's a nice way to remember those big crayfish.